So it is day one of Unfinity spoiler season, and craziness is already taking place. I mean, this morning we saw Space Bellerin. Yeah, you heard me right, not Jace, but Space Bellerin. And oh my goodness, it is real, and it is a legal card in Eternal formats. Which brings us to this episode because, wait, this is legal? So to find out what I'm talking about, well, let's jump into it. So apparently there's this new thing called attractions, and when they first showed them off, well, the first one they showed, which I'm not going to show because it's an Acorn card and not legal in Eternal formats, well, they first showed that one, and with that, I assumed that all these attractions would be Acorn cards and not legal, but then they showed Haunted House, which, as you can see at the bottom of the card, no Acorn there. So yeah, apparently attractions, at least some of them, are going to be legal in Eternal formats, and I definitely didn't imagine that would be the case, but here we are. My goodness, things are getting crazy to say the least. So as you can see, and let's just use this one as an example, Haunted House, it has no mana cost at all. So how in the world do you play it? Well, first let's just read the rest of the card, and then we'll get to the exact rules. Artifact attraction, visit, return target creature card from your grave to the battlefield. It gains haste, exile at the beginning of the next end step. And on the right, we've got 6 slots, 6 numbers right there. 2 of them are highlighted with a 3 and a 6 being highlighted. So when it comes to the rules and the context for what in the world attractions are and what they do, here we go. Attractions are basically a second deck, and please correct me below in the comments if I'm making any mistakes on this. I try to listen to stream as best I can and take notes, but I very well could have made a mistake. Anyways, I believe you need at least 10 attractions in that deck, so you can't just guarantee that you're going to hit a specific one. You'll have cards that open up an attraction, and when that happens, you draw the card off the top of your attraction deck, and that is the one that you put into play onto the battlefield. And yeah, obviously you don't pay for anything like that, you just get it into the battlefield just by opening it up, quote unquote. And then at the beginning of your first main phase, you're going to roll a d6, and if you roll one of those lit numbers, one of the numbers on the right that is lit, so in this example again, that would be a 3 or a 6, then you, quote unquote, may visit that attraction, which means that you can get, the benefit off of that attraction. So if you had Haunted House in play after, opening it up off the top of your attraction deck, and then you rolled, again, either a 3 or a 6 at the beginning of your first main phase, you would then get that trigger. You can, reanimate a creature, it gets haste, exile at the beginning of the next end step. On top of that, and we'll get to an example here in a bit, but yeah, attractions can have different variations for those numbers on the right, actually. And if my notes were correct on this one, a 1 is always a miss, so you don't get to visit any attractions because none of them have a 1, but a 6 is always a hit for every single attraction. And obviously, 2 and 5 in between are the ones that differ. Okay, so let's recap again. You've got a separate attraction deck, apparently, with at least 10 attractions in it. When you open an attraction, and again, we'll get to a card that shows off how that might happen, you take a card at the top of your library that goes immediately into play. It's an artifact, and at the beginning of your first main phase each turn, on each of your turns, I should say, you roll a d6. If you hit numbers, that you can visit to the attractions, you may do so. Oh, and one other thing that is a slight wrinkle and kind of weird as well. Let's say again, because these are artifacts that are on the battlefield, let's say that one of them is destroyed. Well, it doesn't actually go to your graveyard because it's a card outside the game. Or maybe I should say a card that's outside of your actual deck. But instead it goes to, I believe they called it the junkyard, which is a separate graveyard essentially for your attraction deck. Yeah, this is getting kind of complex. And again, there's a reason why at first I assumed when I saw these, they were all going to be Acorn cards, but apparently that is not the case. And actually, kind of going along with that, the Rules Committee has a long-standing tradition of not liking outside the game cards and not allowing them, like, lessons or, wish cards, getting things from a sideboard, etc., etc., etc. And yet, it appears that these are going to be legal and playable in Commander and not banned. So, yeah, strange times in Magic the Gathering and in many formats, including Commander, indeed. Now, opinions on the legality of attractions aside, let's continue on with some attraction examples. Again, like I mentioned, there are going to be different variations of individual attractions like Haunted House and Haunted House. The only differences are actually going to be, it looks like, the flavor text as well as the number combination on the right. So again, if you roll, let's say, a 3, and you have the attraction on the left in play, you can utilize that one, but not the one on the right. But, the same is obviously true for a 4 for that one. So just keep that in mind, and I believe it was mentioned that, at higher rarities, there are less of these attractions, I believe, or less of these variations, and at lower rarities, there might be more, so we shall see, and my apologies if I misheard that, but yeah, I believe some of them have quite a few variations. And now that we've got attractions and how they work under our belt, and we're experts on how they work, right? Yeah, anyways, let's talk about some other attractions, starting off with a common with Fortune Teller artifact attraction. I'm pretty sure every single one of them is going to be the exact same text there. Visit Scry 1. And as you can see, you can roll a 2, 3, or again a 6. And again, like I mentioned before, I believe the 1 is always a fail no matter what the attraction is. A 6 is always a win. And 2 and 3 are going to be the other numbers that work for this one. But of course, there are other versions of this again that have different number combinations. Again, never 1 and always 6 though. Now, scrying 1 is nice, not quite as nice as, reanimating a creature, giving it haste, and, exiling at the end of the turn. But yeah, I mean, still scrying 1 is a nice additional value, so hence, this one having, a lower rarity, and also, I would assume as well, more numbers on the right that you can hit to ensure that you can go visit this attraction. Or how about next up, we've got Hall of Mirrors. Again, artifact attraction. This one is a rare. Visit, choose target creature you control. Each other creature you control becomes a copy of that creature until end of turn, except it isn't legendary if the chosen creature is legendary. So we've actually seen this effect, in a couple of cards recently. I can't remember that MDFC is called back from, I believe, Strixhaven. Basically did the exact same thing on the backside of it. I can't remember the name. I'm so sorry. It's like Augmented Pugilist, and the backside is something. Regardless, a pretty big effect, and again, because of that, the rare designation, and also, again, on the right side, we see that only the 2 and the 6 are lit up. So you've got, what, a 33% chance of hitting this? And actually, we'll talk about some ways to increase that percentage chance. And actually, on top of that, too, keep in mind, these are artifacts themselves. So you actually, they're permanents on the battlefield. You can find ways, obviously, to copy an artifact. These are not legendary. So if you've got, multiple Hall of Mirrors in play that each have, the exact same numbering, you might be able to hit this multiple times. Now, this one doesn't do anything, obviously, with that, because you could just, change it. But again, for the previous one, like Fortune Teller or, Haunted House, getting that trigger twice could be beneficial. So, just something to keep in mind. Moving on, though, how about Concession Stand? We see that we've got an uncommon attraction here. Visit, create a food token. So, as you can see on the right, only the 4 and the 6 are lit up, which to me is kind of surprising. I mean, creating a food token is nice. I kind of put on the same level, at least personally, around like scrying too, gaining life. I mean, yes, there are certain things that you can do with artifacts, I guess. There's that. You actually get a physical thing on the battlefield. Regardless, that aside, as you can see, these have different kind of levels of what they are doing. And again, apparently based on that level, and again, it seems like that, designation of uncommon, rare, common, etc., 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 the number that are lit up on the right, corresponds to that. The more rare, the less options there are. Though, again, apparently, this one has the exact same amount as a rare. So we'll have to see if this is always the case, where uncommons always having, 2 lit up. Or, commons always 3, etc., etc. But moving on, let's see how we actually can open up one of our attractions with, I believe this is the only way that we've seen so far that is actually legal and eternal. Again, no acorn at the bottom. That opens up an attraction. Lifetime Pass Holder. A 2/1 zombie guest that costs a black that enters the battlefield tapped, and when it dies, open an attraction. And when you roll to visit your attractions, if you roll a 6, you may return Lifetime Pass Holder from your graveyard to the battlefield. So to actually open up the attraction, you actually need, the LTB for this. You need the death trigger for lifetime pass holder. Get it down early, obviously have it die. You get an attraction off the top. And again, you actually have ways to open up even more attractions just with this, because you can keep getting this back again if you roll that magic number 6. Which, of course, allows you to visit all of your attractions. On top of that, gets this back so you can get even more attractions in the future. And obviously, working around this one, there are ways to actually, take advantage of something like a death trigger to get even more attractions. Something like a Feigned Death, and we've seen this kind of a card a lot recently. Till end turn, target creature gains when this creature dies, return to the battlefield, tapped under its owner's control, they +1 counter on it. Basically, okay, my creature's gonna die, cool, I'll sacrifice it, with a sacrifice outlet or whatnot, get that trigger, it comes back so I can do it again if I want to open up even more attractions. Or how about Apprentice Necromancer, pay a black, tap, sacrifice it, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield, that creature gains haste at the beginning of the next end step, sacrifice it. So cool, we get our lifetime pass holder back, we, I can't attack with it I guess because it comes into play tap, but still, and then we sacrifice to get that trigger again. Or think about clone spells as well. Like a Rite of Replication, especially a kicked one, and thank you Eddie for mentioning this one, but yeah, you can create a token that's a copy of target creature. If it's kicked, you get 5 instead, so you get 5 lifetime pass holders. When those die, again, you get those triggers, open up your attractions, so you can open up a ton at once. And obviously, we'll see, what other kinds of ways of effectively opening up attractions there are. I'm assuming there are going to be ones, that again are Acorn, that are not eternal, but there are definitely going to be a decent amount that are eternal as well. On top of that, like I mentioned before, there are ways to actually play with your dice rolls to ensure that you get a better one, or at least hopefully you get a better one. Barbarian class, Weil, and Pixie Guide are a couple cards I want to bring up. Barbarian class says if you would roll 1 or more dice, instead roll that many dice +1 and ignore the lowest roll. Now keep in mind there might be times that you actually want the lower roll. Again, let's say that you roll a 2 and a 3, and your attractions mostly have 2s on them. Well, that's actually going to be bad for you. Now obviously, one benefit for this is that you have a higher percentage chance of actually rolling again that magic number 6, and it's a lot harder for you also to roll a 1 because you'd have to roll it twice. So your definite misses are going to be a lot less, and your definite hits are going to be more as well. On top of that, this also has whenever you roll 1 or more dice, target creature control gets +2/+0, gains menace until end of turn at level 2. So yeah, actually rolling dice just with your attractions, just having them on the battlefield, you always get to roll a dice, at the beginning of your main phase, first main phase. You get additional benefits with something like this too. Speaking of which, there's Wild Blade of the Frontiers, which has the exact same, as that level 1 essentially. You get to ignore, the lower roll of 2. On top of that, whenever you roll 1 or more dice, you get a counter on Wild. And then, yeah, Pixie Guide, basically the exact same thing as that first part. Again, helping you increase the chances that you roll a higher dice roll. So if you are going heavy into, again, these attractions, maybe you're going to utilize, more and more attractions that have higher numbers on them. Again, you are more likely to hit them versus, ignoring that lowest roll. On top of that, some other cards to consider might be ones, again, that can benefit you when you do roll dice, no matter what kind of dice those are, like, Rondus, Rage of Ancients. In Rage, whenever it's dealt damage, you may create a 5/4 red and green dragon sphere creature token with. When this creature deals damage, sacrifice it. And whenever you roll 1 or more dice, you can have Rondus deal 1 damage to itself. So yeah, just keep pinging Rondus by rolling dice, make more and more 5/4 dragons. Or how about Netherese Puzzle Ward? At the beginning of your upkeep, roll a d4, scry X is the result, and on top of that, whenever you roll a die's highest natural result, draw a card. So again, with your attractions, you're going to be rolling a d6, and when you hit a 6, you are going to get this trigger and draw a card. Or how about Feywild Trickster? Whenever you roll 1 or more dice, create a 1/1 blue fairy dragon creature token with flying. So again, another way to actually just, benefit from you rolling, no matter what you actually roll. And of course, finally, if you are really going heavy into this dice rolling concept, Vexing Puzzle Box is an option as well. Whenever you roll 1 or more dice, put a number of charge counters on Vexing Puzzle Box, you'll the result. Tap, add 1 mana of any color, roll a d20. Tap, remove 100 charge counters from Vexing Puzzle Box, search library for an artifact card, put that card on the battlefield, then shuffle. So again, just adding attractions into the deck, or at least ways to open attractions, and having, your second attraction deck, or whatever you want to call this. Again, it's a decently strange concept. That can obviously impact, the amount of dice that you're rolling throughout the game and the amount of counters that you can get on Vexing Puzzle Box and how quickly you can do that. But yeah, as this episode is coming to a close, it's time for me to give you my final thoughts on attractions and cards, again, that can open up attractions. So personally, and this is just my first thoughts, my initial thoughts, and they very well might change. I don't think they're going to be a problem. I don't think attractions are going to cause issues, but I personally think they probably should have all been, acorns, not eternal legal. Seems like a weird exception that they made for some of them. They might just be somewhat confusing again in the landscape of Magic, having to memorize, an additional thing that is going on, And sure, you can say, okay, it's only the player that's actually playing, the attraction deck that has to actually pay attention to it and kind of understand it. But I mean, all players really would have to. And also, of course, on top of that, well, I mean, let's say again, I stole, the zombie, and I decide to sacrifice it. There's plenty of ways for me to, take that creature. I mean, if I've got a Queen Marchesa build, that is going to happen. And so, yeah, I mean, I'm going to steal the creature. I'm going to sacrifice it. I get that trigger. Now what happens? I don't have any attraction cards. I don't have an attraction deck. So what kind of attraction do I get at that point? Or does that trigger just fizzle because I don't have an attraction deck on the side? Do I always need to have an attraction deck on the side? These are the kind of questions that get just a bit kind of hazy and a bit kind of sloppy when it comes to adding in, these kinds of things. And of course, on top of that, like I mentioned earlier, yeah, I mean, traditionally the rules committee seemingly has been against any kind of cards that are basically, quote unquote, outside the game. So, having a separate attraction deck, typically you'd think the rules committee was against that. Just like, they didn't allow, lessons to be a thing, a separate sideboard for lessons. So, I mean, it'll be interesting to see if the conversation around that comes up again, because, yeah, if these are legal, why aren't those legal? Also, same for, wish boards, essentially. So, yeah, I mean, a lot of questions kind of just with this, and yeah, I mean, I'd love to hear your opinions on it as well. What are your thoughts on attractions? Do you think they should be legal or shouldn't be legal? And yeah, kind of again, when I first saw these, my personal initial reaction is, why aren't all these just acorn to kind of solve that issue before it kind of starts? But you never know. Opinions might change on these. And of course, make sure you stay tuned for even more crazy, exciting spoilers coming up on this channel. And with that, the show is coming to a close, so it's my turn to hear from you. So the comments below, let me know your thoughts on this episode are, and as always, thanks again and have a good one. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. We also have a ton of brand new t-shirt designs in stock, so make sure you check out those as well. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG Player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support.